There's bills both in Pennsylvania and Ohio that are intended to prop up nuclear power plants that are facing economic troubles and could close down. And it's so there's a whole debate going on. Some people are worried that they're too expensive. Environmentalists are concerned that keeping nuclear open leads us in the wrong direction rather than the right direction, which is shutting them down, shutting fossil fuels down, and having solar and wind. And basically, what's at stake here in the short term is that there's 4 nuclear plants that are slated for early retirement in these 2 states in the near future if they don't receive these bailout subsidies. And similar measures were already enacted in Illinois, New York, and New Jersey. And one of the interesting dynamics is precisely that it's the environmentalists who are opposed to these, and it's in Ohio's case, the Republican governor Mike DeWine, who's saying that, look, if we're going to have any chance of meeting our low and no carbon electricity goals, like nuclear provides 90% of our zero carbon electricity, and so there's no way that we're going to come close if we don't save nuclear. And I mean, as a rule, I'm opposed to subsidies, but I'm to the extent I could be sympathetic, I'm sympathetic to the extent that the whole context here is that you've had an industry that's basically been destroyed by regulation, both anti-nuclear regulation, but in particular, wind and solar favoritism that, for various reasons, is particularly hits hard, reliable baseload power that cannot adjust to the ups and downs of intermittent energy. And so, I mean, at a minimum, I'd be willing to at least entertain an argument that said, well, we're going to temporarily keep these nuclear plants alive because once you shut them down, I mean, that's the end of it. But it has to come with regulatory reforms that stop artificially punishing nuclear. I'm curious what your evaluation is, Alex.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. Stefan, didn't you do some work on this recently? Did you do an interview on this morning? I know we had talked about that.
An interview? No.
Oh, I thought we had talked about no. Well, that's kind of internal stuff anyway. But I thought that there was some radio interview that you might have done. But you wrote out some answers on this recently, right?
Yeah, so one interesting part of this bailout business for both nuclear and coal power plants is that the necessity or the apparent necessity from a policy standpoint stems from the fact that solar and wind as intermittent renewable power sources have uh, received so much favorable treatment. And so when they enter the power grid and are given priority, they are essentially sort of destroying the business model of baseload power plants, which are mostly coal and nuclear. And so they are built to essentially, uh, you know, produce a constant level of power at a very high and efficient level, and then they can produce very cheap electricity. But when intermittent renewables enter the power grid and they are introducing some volatility in the generation of electric power, then nuclear power plants and coal power plants can't just do that, what they are built for, and they have to adapt to that. And one of the problems is then that they are running at an inefficient level, or that, for example, maybe at noon when they would have prime time to make money with cheap baseload power, they are not able to do that and not recover the capital expenses. And then, of course, the renewable advocates would say, hey, look, they are being beaten by renewable power sources on the free market, but it's not a free market, right? So they have been built to fill a certain role, and that is now sort of getting destroyed by the intermittent energy sources. And the intermittent energy sources never have to produce reliable energy. When the sun goes down and solar doesn't produce anything, it's never punished for that. It's not punished for not producing reliable energy. But the baseload power plants, like nuclear power plants, are being punished for not being able to do what they haven't been designed to do, and which is only necessary because solar and wind enter the power grid. So that's a very sort of unfair, rigged market from regulation to start with, and then you can't argue, oh, this is a market outcome. It's not.
Yeah, I think I'm just so we've got this phenomenon of the government in various forms runs a lot of the electrical system, and I'm just generally very worried about anything that's compromising the reliability of that system, particularly just because there's this obsession with these using these unreliable fuels. And then those are also totally screwing up the prices that people are paying. So yeah, I wouldn't use the kind of when you're dealing with proven forms of power that we know can produce power very cheaply. Uh, I'm I'm sympathetic to things that are keeping them open, and I think the key is to move toward policies where you you have proper policies toward the unreliable fuels where they have to meet certain standards of reliability. Otherwise, they are severely penalized or not allowed on. Because just in terms of just the basic logic, it just doesn't make any sense that, oh, nuclear power plants are suddenly becoming really expensive, given that those are plants where there's a lot of upfront investment, but then it's very, very low fuel cost over time. So to shut those down, there's probably something off in the way that you are running your grid.